locker room with all the sports news you need. Live.
Good afternoon, it's Friday, it's 5 o'clock, and you know what that means. Yes, it is the locker room here on Indie Live and Independence Live. We are live on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Twitch, which I still don't know how to work that yet, but there you go. You can get us on the usual platforms. I am your host, Graham Duffy. As always, delighted today to be joined by our good friend and Kilmarnock fans. You can tell by the top he's got on. It's Laurie Finlayson. Laurie, how you doing?
Good. Thanks for having me on again, Graham. And I'm still pretty much on cloud nine with Kelly's start to the season, but we'll get into that later, I'm sure.
Oh, yes, I'm sure we will. You're delighted by that start. So we've got a busy show again. We are going to have to look back at the last few days in Europe for the Scottish clubs. Bit of a mixed bag for the Scottish teams. And we'll also look ahead to the fixtures this weekend. We've got a lot of games this weekend in the Premier League, starting tomorrow at 12:30 with Ross County against Rangers. But we shall start with the game that kicked it all off on Tuesday night at Ibrox. Rangers took on PSV Eindhoven in a very entertaining game that finished Rangers 2, PSV Eindhoven 2. Rangers scored first through Sima on 45 minutes. Then, for me, the best player in the park, Sangari, levelled on 61 minutes. Rangers went back in front on 76 minutes through substitute Ravi Matondo. But again, 4 minutes later, PSV equalised through Luke de Jong. I'm not sure, Laurie, if you'd asked Rangers fans at the start of this game if they take a draw, if they would have accepted that. What did you make of Rangers' performance on Tuesday?
I thought maybe PSV started it better, but I mean Rangers kind of grew into it. What I would say though is Abdullah Sima, up until when he scored, I thought Sima really struggled in the game, and then the goal for him kind of came out of the blue. But who knows, that might help his confidence. But under the game, Rangers did pretty well, particularly in the second half. I think Matondo made a bit of a difference to Rangers, and but again, he's an athlete who seems to have potentially redirected Rangers' career. But what you said about Sangari, Graham, I think that was spot on. He stood out as the best player on the park. And as to whether Rangers would have taken a draw, or Rangers fans would have taken a draw, I don't think they would have done, because of course that just puts pressure on them going to the Netherlands next week. Needing to go and win, albeit of course it was the exact same scenario as they were in this time last year.
I mean, if the game was played at a frantic pace, the Rangers crowd were up for it. And to be fair, the first half, I actually thought PSV were very good. I touched on Sangari there. I thought he was excellent. I thought the boy Dest on the left-hand side was very good. Rangers couldn't really get a lot going. And to be fair, he was criticised in the first half of that game. For about 44 minutes, Sima was dreadful. And I think that's fair. But it was a fantastic finish, the opening goal.
Yeah, you can't deny a player of quality finish like that. Doesn't matter how poor they've been the rest of the game. That was a top class goal from somebody who Rangers were hoping was going to be a top player, but we're yet to see that. But hopefully, at least for the sake of the Scottish coefficient, hopefully Rangers can get the job done out in Eindhoven. But whether they will remains to be seen. I have no doubt it will be a good game next week when it comes round.
Second half obviously starts, and again, I mean, Sangari equalises. It's poor defence for Rangers, but that finish in Matondo, it's a really good finish. It's a really good move. Lovely ball in from Dessers, who I didn't actually think was that great, to be honest, overall, but he's been involved in 2 goals. But the finish in Matondo is an excellent finish.
Yeah, Matondo did really well in our good finish. And if I'm not mistaken, and perhaps someone in the chat could correct me here, I think that might be Matondo's first Rangers goal. I mean, that's some goal for your first goal, if that's correct. I'm almost sure it was his first Rangers goal, and who knows, they might kick on from it. But yeah, second half, Rangers were better. I mean, sometimes, of course, they had the moments where they were sloppy, but as you say, for the most part, when PSG scored, it was mostly moments of quality from the Dutch side and not necessarily poor play from Rangers. I mean, going forward, this Rangers, you can tell, still need to gel that a little bit more, but they do seem to have became a little bit more solid. Yes, I say that when they've conceded 2 goals, but they seem a wee bit less kind of soft-centred as they did last year. So yeah, but up front, like the Desters, as you say, he's getting involved in goals, but his overall play still doesn't look brilliant. And from what I've seen of the other strikers they've brought in, Danilo, I wouldn't say he's looked too great either. But I think when that Rangers team actually gel, they could be in a pretty good place.
I think obviously we don't support Rangers, so we don't really see them as much as many other Rangers fans do. But one of the things I noticed, and it was very noticeable actually, was the lack of width they've got. You know, obviously they've not got Ryan Kent anymore. There was an issue, I think, out wide for Rangers. They didn't really have that width. Did you see that as well?
Yeah, absolutely did. I mean, Rangers they always have been to an extent, but as you say, particularly without the likes of Ryan Kent, they are overly reliant on the likes of Tavernier or Baratic to provide width from well, effectively wing back, full back, stroke wing back. And that might be an issue for Rangers because on paper they don't really have a kind of outball anymore. Of course, Kent was that. I mean, who knows? Ravi Matondo's certainly got the pace for it, but we've not really seen that from him yet in a Rangers shirt, apart from maybe Tuesday night.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen Matondo a few times, and he's came off the bench a couple of times for Rangers, and he looks very lively. He's got pace to burn. That, as I say, was a great finish. But I think for me, maybe one of the biggest things that I think Rangers still have is I do still think Cantwell is one of the best players. How did you think he did on Tuesday?
I thought he was, but his standards, I thought he was a wee bit quieter. But then again, this is his kind of first taste of Champions League football, probably first taste of European football. So this will be a bit of a kind of learning curve for Cantwell. But he again, as someone who doesn't support Rangers, so looking from the outside in, he's someone who has really impressed since coming off of the border.
If you're Michael Beale, how disappointed are you going to be for the second goal? Because it's a header that doesn't even hit his head, Luke de Jong. It comes off his shoulder. How disappointed are you going to be that you've just taken the lead and within 4 minutes you've lost a really poor goal from a set piece?
Yeah, that's going to be infuriating, and even more so to Michael Beale because last year I would say defending at set pieces was Rangers' Achilles heel. So maybe that vulnerability is still there. So if you're Michael Beale, you are tearing your hair out over that. I mean, and as you say, you're always, as cliche as it is, you're always most vulnerable after you've scored. And I mean, you know that all too well. And it's just but it is as much as a cliche, it's true because the PSG basically got up the other end, scored with Luke de Jong's shoulder, as it were. I mean Luke de Jong wasn't really hitting anything apart from a doorway inside Ibrox. Is that correct? If he apparently kicked the door off its hinges, but other than that, he wasn't really hitting anything, was he? Until
No,
that
he certainly wasn't. I mean, one of the new Rangers signings, Cyril Dessers, I just mentioned it there. He did create 2 goals, but what do you make of his overall game? Are you impressed with what you've seen so far from him?
I wouldn't say I'm that impressed. As you say, he creates goals and he has scored, so that is what strikers are going to be judged on at the end of the day. But to me, he looked quite clunky. Clunky is the word that comes to mind for me. I don't know whether it's because I don't watch too much Rangers, but I just haven't been overly bowled over by him. I mean, any Rangers fans who I do speak to don't seem overly impressed with him either. So I'm not too impressed. What about you, Graham?
Yeah, I mean, I think there is a player in there, but I don't see enough. I think he's very. I think you're right. I think that word you used there is quite right. I think there is something in there, and he's clearly got a bit of creation about him because he's made 2 goals. But when you sign a player as a striker, you want him to score goals, and at the moment he's not doing that. Now, of course, these players need time to gel and settle in. But the issue you've got is when you play for Celtic Rangers, you don't get that time. You've got to settle quickly, and that I think is a bit of a worry.
Yeah, I think that is a worry for Michael Beale. and Rangers. I mean, when you think about it, their entire front line has basically been transformed overnight with, the departures of Kent, Morelos, Cholak. So I mean, they've trying to replace it all, almost a wee bit of, just too much upheaval there. I mean, personally, again, as someone who's not a Rangers fan, so maybe I'm not the most informed person to say this, I would have, maybe actually kept Brian Kent. I mean, this would be a bit of a loose cannon, but Kent I would have probably kept around. Just as someone as you were between them to provide that bit of width, bit of pace, and hopefully a bit of end product. But I know it was not always his strong point.
I think me and Michael and yourself probably as well have touched on this before, but I mean, what do you make of Michael Beale so far? Because I think at the moment, I don't think Rangers are overly impressive. Don't get me wrong, a draw against PSV is not a bad result because PSV look a very good side, but they've obviously lost to yourselves in the opening game of the season. They were not great against Livingston until they got the second goal late on. What do you make of Michael Beale overall so far?
I'm not, like you're saying, I'm not overly impressed with how he actually started. I'm not saying I can't really say I want him started or anything, but he's kind of got an easy ride so far. It feels like I don't know whether it's because he was, the coach under Gerrard in the past, whatever, but he seems to have got a relatively easy ride, from Rangers fans, from what you see, or from the media. But as you say, they've not done anything that impressive. Of course, there's usually a decent result during the week, but then there are domestically at least cracks starting to show, like, losing at Rugby Park, labouring to victory over Livingston, or at least labouring to a second goal. I mean, the the signs aren't brilliant, but I mean, he's still getting results at the end of the day.
They obviously play the second leg on Wednesday, and I've been thinking about this earlier on because I was thinking in my head the ties this week, what I think is going to happen. Now, I hope there's no Rangers fans watching this, but I think Rangers are going to drop out and go to the Europa League because I just think this PSV side look very dangerous. They look a better side than they did last season. I mentioned them earlier on, I've mentioned them twice already, but Sangari in the centre of the park looks a fantastic player, really tidy, really composing the ball. Dest out wide looks creative. They've got De Jong up front. I just think going over there to Holland, this is going to be a bit too much to ask of Rangers. Would you agree with that, or do you think Rangers can get through?
I think, generally speaking, Graham, I would agree with that. I mean, for the sake of the Scottish coefficient, I said a minute ago, I hope that they were both wrong and they do get through. But at the same time, is it actually better for the coefficient if Rangers do drop into the Europa League and who knows, go on a run? I mean, they've done it before. I mean, as we've seen their run to Seville. I mean, but what I do I'm curious, and anyone listening in the chat, feel free to get involved in this. Would you rather Rangers were in the Champions League and then just, dropped out of it? Or would you rather they actually got into the Europa League and went on a run? I think a lot of them would take the Europa. Maybe that sounds defeatist, and maybe I'm looking at it as someone who isn't a Rangers fan, but I don't know.
I mean, I think I agree with you because if you look at what West Ham have done, look what they did in Europe. And I think for me, listen, it's all about money. Of course, the Celtic and Rangers want the Champions League money. They want the glamour ties. But I listened to another show a couple of days ago, and a Rangers fan was on that, and he actually made that kind of similar point that he would rather be in the Europa League. And look what Rangers did a couple of seasons ago in the Van Bronckhorst. They got to the final. So, getting a run in that might be a better option. Because if you're playing the Champions League, let's be honest, yes, you've got the glamour. But look at last season. They had a horrendous draw against Liverpool, and I think Napoli as well. They were outplayed in most of those games. Getting beat 7-1 by Liverpool at Ibrox. Now, yes, it's a glamour tie, but I think you'd rather want a run in Europe, and Rangers won't get that in the Champions League. Let's be honest, and probably Celtic might not either. So I think you would probably rather have the Europa League. But again, we might both be wrong. But I just think if you look at it logically, the Europa League's the better bet.
Absolutely, I agree. They are just the interested in Rangers fans, and even Celtic fans take on that because as you say, there's nothing really to say that Celtic are going to go on a big Champions League run. I mean, they didn't cover themselves in glory last season, other than what, maybe half an hour or so against Real Madrid. Again, difficult draw because they're probably in the bottom seeding pot. So that's what you get.
Good to see we've got some comments here. Our good friends, as we know, evening Jets, Aberdeen to struggle on Sunday. Very possible because they are playing your team, St Mirren, so that we'll get onto that shortly. And Paul Donaldson, I'm not going to comment on anything to do with Rangers, but some Aberdeen fans have been asking the same question. Would we be better off dropping into Europa Conference? And I think it is a good point because the Europa League, there are some very good teams in there. And I mentioned before we came on the show earlier on that if Aberdeen get to the group stage of European football, Europa League, which I think they will, because I think they'll beat Hacken, they potentially in pot one could play West Ham or Liverpool. Straight away, you're up against it. And the other teams in the draw look difficult as well. The Conference League is not quite as good, although Hearts found it to the cost last season against Fiorentina this actually year. But I think the Conference League is probably, for Aberdeen, the better option for me.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And again, thanks for the comments. Keep them coming in. But yeah, I would agree with that kind of sentiment there, Graham. Because I mean, Conference League, and this in disrespect towards Scottish football, but Conference League's probably a bit closer to our level. When you think of whatever you make of the Conference League, when UEFA were, devising it, it was Scottish clubs and the clubs of a similar level to us, the coefficient table they were thinking about whilst doing it. I mean, it's still a challenge, as you said. Hearts, I think an easy draw last year. I mean, Fiorentina, which you'd argue with a bit of a glamour tie, and of course Istanbul. I'm not going to say the last part of their name. I'm just going to butcher it if I do. So, but yes, the Conference League is probably better suited to Scottish club. Of course, you've got to think as well the kind of financial, differences. I'm sure Aberdeen could make a little more money out of the Europa League as opposed to Europa Conference, but then in the conference they might be able to. You don't know, get out of the group. But I'm having a bit of a brain fart here at the moment, and I'm sure Graham you'll be able to answer this. So if you finish third in a conference in a Europa League group, you will drop into the conference, won't you?
Yeah, you would, yeah.
So yeah, so it's possible that they hopefully get to play in a bit of both and that bit. Obviously, we'll see what happens when they get a draw, but hopefully they beat Hacken first. We'll get on to that in a little bit later.
I mean, as Lima makes a good point here as well. Having 3 tiers of European competition proves that it wasn't broken back in the day when they had the European Cup, the Cup Winners' Cup, and the UEFA Cup. I agree with that. I liked those tournaments. I liked the UEFA Cup. I thankfully got to see Hearts playing in quite a few of those UEFA Cup ties. I was about 11 when Hearts played the UEFA Cup, and we played against Bayern Munich in 1989, which was one of the best days of my life, the best nights of my life. It was amazing. We played Slavia Prague. We played some really, really good sides in there. So I think it probably wasn't broken. This is just a kind of rip-up version of those, I think. Now, I'm going to lay my cards on the table here, right? And I've been very honest about this in the past and very vocal about this in the past. A lot of folk will disagree with me, which is fine. That's what I'm here for. But I have an issue with teams that go into the Champions League, and if they finish third, they drop into Europa League. I don't think that's fair. And I've always thought that because you've had 6 games, you weren't good enough to get through. Why should you then get to drop down a league and play in that? I don't agree with that. I never have.
I don't really agree with that either, to be honest with you. I mean, it's not overly controversial. It's just something that we've grown accustomed to as football fans. Really, I mean, look at someone like let's look at Sevilla, for example. I'm not trying to have a go at Unai Emery here, but like Sevilla was obviously win the Europa League as they used to do, and obviously get into the Champions League through that, drop out, and then just go win the Europa League again. So it's a bit counterintuitive. And if you look at some of the teams, who have, won the Europa League in most of the time, I mean, the likes of was there not a year where the final was Chelsea against Arsenal? And And I'm sure at least one of them, I would have guessed at Chelsea, were probably a Champions League dropout. So it just puts all the other, base Europa League teams effectively at a huge disadvantage.
100%. Hashbury says, I'm only here for the pie in Ballville. I could really do with a pie right now. But I'm not a massive fan of Ballville, I'm going to be honest. Hashbury, again, the UEFA Cup used to be the Fair Cities Cup. I'm obviously far too old for that. I don't remember that. So let's move on to a team that...
Sorry, I barely even remember it being the UEFA Cup. There you are. I mean,
you're just far too young, Laurie. And many good moments in the UEFA Cup. But let's talk about a team that, unfortunately for them, is going to be out of Europe very soon, and that is Hibernian. And I'm not laughing or anything like that. I'm not smug because it's a shame. But Hibs played Aston Villa on Wednesday, and they went down by 5-0. A hat-trick from Ollie Watkins, a goal from Leon Bailey, and a penalty from Douglas Luiz. Now, I think going into this game, some Hibs fans thought they might have had a chance, but it went very badly wrong because I think Hibs started okay. Aston Villa had a lot of possession, but maybe really weren't creating a lot, and then they get the goal. It's a brilliant ball in from Luca Dean for the first goal. Great header by Ollie Watkins. And after that, it could have been 5 or 6 before half-time. Laurie, I spoke about this before we came on the show. I listened to another show a couple of days ago, and what I didn't expect to hear was an Englishman actually saying that there was nothing wrong in what happened to Hibs because the financial levels are completely different. I never thought I'd hear that, but he's right. I mean, the financial gap, the financial gulf between Hibs and Villa is huge.
Yeah, I mean, it absolutely is kind of seismic difference. I mean, we're in two different stratospheres. When you think about it, everyone makes a big deal about Hibs reportedly spending, I think it was £700,000 on Dylan Vente, the Dutch striker they brought in. I mean, whereas, Aston Villa would quite happily spend, probably 20, 30 million on a player and no one would really bat an eyelid. Whereas we're all kind of going, oh, £700,000, that's a big fee. And in fairness to Hibs, as you say, Graham, they started all right. They had the kind of half-hearted claim for a penalty where, in all honesty, Martin Boyle bought the contact, but then who could blame him? And I'm not trying to encourage simulation in him, but who could actually blame the guy? If you think you've got a chance of getting a penalty, if you're Hibs against a decent Premier League outfit who finished 7th last year, you try and take the opportunity. But when Hibs, when the floodgates opened and Villa got going, yeah. So and there you are. Well, in the chat here. So Villa's team is worth over €600 million, and Hibs is about 12 million. There you go. That's it. Like, the gulf is. I mean, it's getting worse year on year, and that's nothing. That's nothing to do with poor quality of Scottish football or anything like that. It's just the Finland and English football are going absolutely crazy, and just at least Hibs got there, and we'll see how Hibs do next week in Villa Park. The tie is over. We're not Stephen Thompson and John Rankin. Is the tie over? But the tie is over. But hopefully they can go for a bit of play for a bit of the pride. And Aston Villa, in fairness, if you look at their lineup, they put out a full frame team. Lucadinha, who you mentioned, full French international. World Cup winning goalkeeper in goal, albeit only played first half. But that Villa are a good side, and I think some people in Scotland are actually guilty of. I don't know whether it's underestimating Villa or overestimating Hibs. I can't quite say which one, but Aston Villa were exceptional. I mean, as you've said, double figures could have easily been achieved in that game.
Yeah, I mean, Azolino says, felt rotten for Hibs. Gordon McIntyre says, hi guys, hope you're good. All good, mate. Hope you are too. But I mean, the thing is, you just mentioned it there. Aston Villa played a really strong side. Do you think, in a way, that actually shows a bit of respect to Hibs, the fact that they did come so strong?
Yeah, I think it does, and fair play to Unai Emery. I mean, I just slagged his Sevilla team 5 minutes ago, but yes, I think it does show that the Villa and Emery were treating Hibs with the utmost respect and taking the game seriously because Aston Villa might have wanted to treat it like a FA Cup third round, tie. Although of course Aston Villa were eliminated by, was it Stevenage last year?
They were, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, I think Aston Villa maybe learnt a lesson from underestimating teams because those in England seem to think that the SPL side or SPFL Premiership sides are like League One, League Two, but that's not necessarily true. I mean, quality wise with England. So it was quite refreshing to see Aston Villa treat Hibs with such respect, albeit it maybe worked against them in the end.
Yeah, I mean, they didn't treat Hibs with much respect during the game. But, I mean, let's be honest, the game was billed as the return of John McGinn, who was surprisingly booed by the Hibs fans at the start of the game. Were you surprised
Yeah,
by that?
yeah, I was. I mean, and I remember, I know you can't really sing along to an Aston Villa chant, but I remember Aston Villa started the old "We've got McGinn" chant that you would often hear, at Hampden. And yeah, you're right, the Hibs fans started booing. I mean, maybe you can't join in, but I wouldn't boo because the guy's been a pretty good servant to Hibs, I've got to say.
Yeah, I mean, Paul Donaldson says, guessing that Villa might rest a few players next week, but only now the tie is beyond Hibs. Yeah, absolutely. I'd expect Villa to play a lot of maybe fringe players, but then again, one of the fringe players is Felipe Coutinho. So, I mean, just how fringe is that? But, I mean, if you actually look at the goals that have lost as well, if you're Lee Johnson, now, yes, you're playing a top quality side who just hammered Everton 4-0 last week. But the goals he lost were so poor. Look at the first one. It's a cross from Digne. Nobody really presses the ball. It's a good header from Watkins, but again, it's poor defending. And even the
Yeah,
second goal as well, it's another cross into the box. And again, it's another free header at the back post. And that happened a lot during that first half. So if you're Lee Johnson, you've been outplayed by Aston Villa, don't get me wrong. But the goals you've lost were avoidable.
yeah, they very much were because I'm sure Lee Johnson will have done his homework on. Well, you would like to think that entire Aston Villa side, but someone like Ollie Watkins, who is their main front man, scores goals fairly regularly in the Premier League. You think they would at least have marked him a bit tighter than they did, and just at least marshaled him a little bit. But no, but hopefully they've well. Hopefully it'll take something away from it, and well, maybe just good luck for next year. Who knows what Hibs will do? Well, they probably need to pick up in the league first, but
I mean, Hibs should be getting used to getting hammered by teams in Maroon anyway, so that's probably not a massive shock, but we'll leave that there. But, I mean, in terms of Hibs, I mean, they didn't really create a lot of chances. Villa never really let them. But, I mean, Villa just looked a class apart. I mean, there were times in that game, and I think I put it in the chat, there were times in that game Villa treated it like a preseason friendly. It was just so easy. They were picking up space so comfortably. They were breaking forward at will. I mean, listen, I'm not Lee Johnson, and I wouldn't really want to be, but when you're 3-0 down to this Villa side, the game plan then surely has to be right. Let's get everyone back in the ball. It's not conceding anymore. The tie's done. But they kind of still tried to get forward and they were leaving gaps all over the place. So I think maybe put it in the hands a little bit.
yeah, I think that was the case. Yeah, I think Hibs did play into Villa's hands a bit and made it even more straightforward for them. Really, and I mean that pains me to say. That does pain me to say, but I mean, did anyone really expect Hibs to even get this far? I mean, at one point, of course, they turned it round. Hibs have had a bit of an interesting European campaign this year, shall we say, with losing it in Andorra, of course, turning that round at Easter Road second leg. But Hibs are always turbulent. Hibs always make it difficult for themselves. I mean, the phrase "doing a Hibs" is probably an Urban Dictionary somewhere.
It should be if it's not.
Yeah.
But I mean, just in terms of that second leg next week, I mean, like Paul said there, and I've said a minute ago, Villa probably will rest a few players. But if you're Lee Johnson and your Hibs, how do you play the second leg next week? Because again, it reminds me of Hearts against Spurs. We were 5-0 down from the first leg, went into the second leg. They played a lot of young players, and we got a 0-0 draw. How does Lee Johnson approach the second leg? What kind of team does he go with, and what should the approach be?
I mean, it's an awkward one. I'm not really sure what I would do, and I don't actually envy Lee Johnson in this position because it's hard because the kind of football fan inside me wants them to go for broke a little bit. But is it worth going for broke? It's not like this are going to turn it round. So, but you don't want to rotate either. It's a bit of a catch-22, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a little bit. And I didn't actually expect to be joined by Regan today. But Regan, how are you doing, my man?
I'm not bad, mate. I just thought I would pop on and see you guys. I was listening. I thought I'll pop on and see you. How you doing?
Not bad, mate. Not bad at all.
Not bad at all either, Regan. Not bad.
That's good, mate. That's good.
We're just talking about Hibs against Aston Villa. I mean, I've just mentioned there, I don't think many folk thought Hibs would get anything from that game. But, I mean, Regan, what was your take on that first leg? Because it was just a masterclass by Villa.
I thought that they showed why they're the best team in the competition, and they really put Hibs to the sword. It's a bit of a shame that the Hibs fans are going down to Villa Park with nothing to play for, apart from a wee trip with your pals, because it would have been nice for them to go down there and actually experience of being able to go down there and have some hope, the same way Aberdeen did. Aberdeen did against Burnley about 2 or 3 years ago, and they did it at McInnes. So no, I think Aston Villa, I think they'll go on to win the Conference League game.
Well, I mean, Hibs fans get to go to Birmingham. If we go out, at least we get to go to Greece. It's Greece Lightning. Nah, but it's. I mean, I've just asked Laurie there, Regan. In terms of the second leg, I mean, how does Lee Johnson approach this? Because the tie's done. So what does he do going into that second leg in Birmingham?
The only thing that I would say though, Graham, he doesn't want to go out there and get beat by 10-0 in aggregate or something. So he wants to go out there and put his best team out there to put his best foot forward. Because if you go out there and you play your second team, if that's what Aston Villa are doing to your first team, my God, what would they do to your second team? Do you know what I mean? So I think they need to strike a balance in terms of being able to say, right, the tie's done, but just see the way that managers kind of do it at Celtic Park and Ibrox, where if they're getting beat 2-0 at half time, they say, let's win the second half. That's probably the kind of approach that Lee Johnson will have.
Laurie, what would be a positive outcome for Hibs next week? Obviously, I was going to mention it before you said it there a minute ago, but Stephen Thompson saying, is the tie over? Of course it is. But what would be a positive for Hibs next Thursday?
I think a positive would be, this maybe sounds defeatist, but even if they were to lose, I don't know, 1-0, 2-0, even get 2-1 up, even something like, even get a goal at Villa Park, get something for the crowd to cheer about, those that have travelled from Edinburgh, because I'm sure I read that tickets at Villa Park for Hibs fans actually sold out before the game. And I'm sure those that are going will still enjoy it and have a good time over there. But yes, indeed, the tie is over.
Well, let's go to a tie that's not over, and that was in Sweden yesterday as Aberdeen took on Häcken, and they came back from 2-0 down. Goals from Leone and Sadia had given Häcken a 2-0 lead. But Aberdeen fought back through goals from Majowski and a goal from Nicky Devlin to make it 2-2, to make the second leg real interesting next week. Regan, I'll start with you. Again, I think if offered Barry Robson a draw before this game, would have taken it. But I heard him after the game and he said that Aberdeen could have won that game by 5 or 6. What was your take on Aberdeen last night? A deserved point?
I thought they played well. Aberdeen thought they were quite unfortunate to be 2-0 down, and it was just very unfortunate for them that Jamie McGrath's finish was offside in the end. So when he looks back at it, he'll probably think it's a fair result, but he'll also think to himself, in terms of being 2-0 down, and like you said, he would have probably took that. But I think the good thing for Aberdeen and for the fans as well, they can go along to that game and be pretty confident that they can get a result there.
Yeah, I mean, Laurie, at 2-0 down, I was on Twitter last night. At 2-0 down, a lot of Aberdeen fans were not happy because I think they probably thought they'd win that game. But at the end of it, they're quite happy about it now.
Yeah, I mean, and they've got to be happy with the way that they turned it round. I mean, I know that I haven't seen it, but I know that Aberdeen weren't helped by VAR. I think one of Hackham's goals was awarded by VAR, so I think that may be part of why Dons were so grieved last night. But they've got to look at the positives now. They're going back to Pretoria next week in a pretty good place. I mean, let's assume by the score that Hackham and Aberdeen were pretty well matched, but it almost feels like advantage Aberdeen because the momentum was with them, I suppose, getting a late comeback, and now it's going back to their place for the second leg. So it almost feels like advantage Aberdeen, doesn't it?
Aye.
Aye, absolutely. I mean, to be honest, the goal from Majowski is a really good goal. Nicky Devlin, again, a really good goal. You mentioned it there a minute ago. Regan. The offside goal from Jamie McGrath. Disappointing they couldn't come back with a lead. But, I mean, in terms of Jamie McGrath, he was linked to Hearts, but we obviously managed to get Alec Lowry in. What's your take on that McGrath signing? Is that a good signing for Aberdeen? More squad depth for them?
I think he proved it. St Mirren, he's a very good player. I think in terms of the Dundee United stint, you can't really blame him for that because they were really bad last year to watch. So you can't really put that all down to him. So I think in terms of Aberdeen, I think it'll be a very good fit, especially no disrespect to Dundee United, but Aberdeen will be playing on the front foot. You'll probably enjoy that more. And then Barry Robson seems to get the best out of young players as well. So it's probably a good environment for him to go to.
Paul Donaldson says, great comeback. Tickets already sold out for the second leg of Pretoria next week, which is good to hear. Majowski was outstanding near the end of the match. Every time he went forward, the only thing that Hack and the finish could do was foul him. And I know that Barry Robson was not happy about some of the kind of stuff that was going on last night. But, I mean, in terms of Majowski, Laurie, we all talk about Duke. We all say that he's probably Aberdeen's best player. Majowski so far this season has started off very well, and he's just maintained that form last night.
Yeah, it has. I mean, Majowski, obviously, to me, Majowski and Duke are really a double act. But as you say, Duke tends to take all the credit and take a lot of the praise, but Majowski started brilliantly. He's somebody who, when you look at him and you even look at last season, he's somebody who you're surprised that Aberdeen were actually able to land. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
As much as nobody had heard of him last summer, you kind of look at him and you think to yourself, he's not too good, but he's very good at this level, and you think, how's he only in Scotland? Plus, he's quite young as well, obviously, isn't he? He's not, he's a good age, so he's started well, and he's going to be somebody who Aberdeen, at the very least, make good money off of.
Reagan, Paul Donaldson says, Nicky Devlin had a great match too. I think he's got a good chance of a call up to the Scotland squad. Do you think that's a fair point?
No, I don't think he'll get a call up to the Scotland squad, simply because of the competition for places in that area. If you look at the centre back, he's got Jack Henry, who's playing in Saudi Arabia for big money. John Suter, who's playing in the Champions League. He's got a few players that are just well above his level, but that's not to say that he couldn't step up. I think he could, but I just think in terms of would he come into Steve Clarke's plans, probably not. And also you need to think of the resurgence of Porteous in terms of what he's did when he came in. I think that's somebody that Steve Clark can really trust now, and I don't think you'd want to break up that partnership of Porteous, because in terms of that, we've struggled to really get a partnership for Scotland for years. Centre backs has been the real big issue, and I think although Devlin has played well, I think sometimes we need to temper expectations, because Graham, you'll know this yourself. We said this about Craig Halkett, and I think Laurie would know this about Stuart Finlay as well. He got a call up under Steve Clark as well. So all of these players are good players, but I think in terms of, if you're asking me right now, I'd probably say Porteous and Suter would be the players from Scotland that would get into the Scotland squad.
Yeah,
Laurie, I think if I was going to say, Laurie, if Steve Clark's watching, I'm sure he has been. Do you think Nicky Devlin, and I think Reagan's right, he makes a good point, there are players in front of him, but do you think if Nicky Devlin keeps up the form that he's doing, then he could push his way into that Scotland squad potentially?
Well, if he does keep up the form, then he gives himself every chance. He does, as Regan rightly points out, has quite a few players ahead of him competition-wise. And what I will say, and you see this in the Scotland picks, plus when he was Kelly manager, Steve Clark does really value consistency. So you've got to be, if you are not in Scotland squad just now and you're a centre half, you've got to be exceptional for Steve Clark to actually think about you, and that makes Steve Clark come across bad. That makes him sound really stubborn. Well, they're a bit stubborn, but it's you've got to stick out a mile for him to actually think about changing the centre half, I think, and that's no disrespect to Devlin or anyone else. And it can happen because, as you said, Reagan. Stuart Finley's had call up in the past, but even you've got to consider the likes of, and I'm not looking at injuries here to say this, you've got to look at the likes of, Liam Cooper and stuff like that, whereas Steve Clark seems to put the likes of Cooper ahead of someone like a Nicky Devlin or Stuart Finley, or even, and I'm one of my Kelly ones speaking here, Robbie Dees. I know Robbie Dees is actually spoken about wanting to represent Scotland. I think it's a little bit early yet, but again, it's the same thing as Devlin, on form Scottish centre half. Again, it'll probably be overlooked.
Reagan, going to the second leg of the tournament next week, it's in Aberdeen's hands. I don't think Hacken are particularly great defensively. I think Aberdeen will get through this, but I want to put a question to you that came in earlier on from Paul Donaldson. He basically said, I'm going to repeat the question they asked. He basically said, would it be better Aberdeen dropping into Europa Conference League? Now, I said to Laurie earlier on, if Aberdeen get to the Europa League, which I think they will, they potentially have a pot once. They could be playing West Ham or Liverpool, and they've got other good teams in there. So would it be better for Aberdeen to be in the Conference League, or can they compete in the Europa League?
Probably be better for their point of view and for the fans, but it's probably better for the prestige of the Scottish game if they're in the Europa League. The one thing that I did mention earlier on someone else is that I don't know if you guys are aware, but Turkey as a nation are doing really well in the coefficient. So as a country, we need Rangers and Aberdeen to both qualify for us not to drop out of automatic qualification for 2 years down the line, because I think it's Galatasaray. If they qualify for the Champions League, they go above us in the coefficient table into 10th place, and only the top 10 get automatic qualification to the league. So then we're basically hanging our hats on Rangers, Aberdeen and Hearts all qualifying, because I think the Turkish league has already got a few teams in it that are doing really well. So we need to match them, because I think if you go on form right now, I think we're sitting somewhere like 14th in the coefficient.
Laurie, this is a difficult question, I know, but I'm going to ask it anyway. We speak about this a lot on this show, about the fact that Scottish clubs in Europe were not great. and I include Hearts in this, I include everyone in the Celtic and Rangers obviously playing the Champions League. You'll know this yourself when you play Connah's Quay. Motherwell have had disappointments in Europe. Gretna, when they played in Europe for the time they were in there. What can Scottish clubs do better to compete in Europe? Because let's be honest, a lot of the teams that we play against, maybe it takes Celtic and Rangers out of the equation because they play against decent teams, but the likes of Hearts, Hibs, obviously we played Aston Villa, but Aberdeen, Motherwell, for example, Kilmarnock. When we play these so-called lesser teams, what are they doing that we can't seem to beat them? Because it happens every year and it's not good enough.
Yeah, there's always one team every year, whether it's whether it's Hibs this year losing to the Andorran team or Motherwell losing to was it Sligo, and of course ourselves before this key a few years back. But we always do have this one kind of outlier, if you will. But I think a lot of it comes down to the fact that we seem to underestimate these teams, and I include fans in this. Like, and I can just tell you when Kelly played Connah's Quay, I mean, we won the first leg in Wales, but we won it thanks to a 90th minute winner from Stuart Finlay. And we all thought it was a 2-1 win, let's take that to Rugby Park. And we all thought we're gonna smash this lot. So I think a lot of it comes down to complacency. I mean, we thought we were just gonna turn up that night and hammer them, which we weren't, because they were up for the fight. Well, they weren't a great team. I remember describing them at the time as Hamilton Accies but worse, as how they kind of played. But the thing is, we just didn't seem ready for the kind of plucky, gritty team coming up against us. And I think that might be part of the issue for some of the other clubs, because you watch some of these teams who beat the Scottish clubs. Very rarely do you go away from the game thinking they were actually a good team. You think to yourself, how on earth did we not beat them? So I think a lot of it's due to
Trust me, I thought the same last night, I'm going to be honest. But I mean, again, Paul Donaldson says BK Hacken looked dangerous when attacking, but looked very suspect at the back and made quite a few mistakes. Reagan, I think, I'm not speaking for both of you guys, but I think Aberdeen will beat them at Pittodrie, and I think they will go to the Europa League.
Yeah, I think they will too. I think it's be great news for a team outside of Celtic and Rangers, because I don't remember the last time a team outside Celtic and Rangers got to the actual Europa League. It's been a long time coming, so it's actually very good for the league. It would be very good profile. I know we talk about the conference, but I think last season it seemed like that was the tin pot kind of cup, as if nobody really wanted to be in it. But and then eventually when West Ham won it, they celebrated it well. So I think it'd be great for the profile of the game up here. I think for Aberdeen, I think the good thing for Aberdeen as well is, like Paul says, I think it's going to be a sellout. So that surely should spur on the players, and I hope they can do well.
Laurie, do you think Aberdeen are going to go through?
I'm gonna be the optimist. I'm gonna say yes. I mean, they're not a bad position. Got it back to 2-2, coming back to a sold out Pittodrie. I'm gonna go for it. For once, I'll say, come on, you Reds. We'll not go as far as stand free or whatever it is, but come on, you Reds.
Here's a question for both of you. I'll come to you first, Reagan. Are you surprised how well Barry Robson's doing with Aberdeen? And his recruitment looks pretty decent this summer. And I know that he's already said that he's looking for another 2 or 3 players for the window shuts next week. Are you surprised how well Barry Robson's doing?
I was looking at the Facebook of Aberdeen the other day, and I'm actually seeing that they've signed something like 12 players so far. Is that right?
Around that number, I think, yeah. But he's looking for 2 or 3 more, though.
I think it just shows you that if they're signing 12 players in one window, it just shows you that clearly Dave Cormack and Alan Burrows have got full faith in Barry Robson and what he's doing. I said this on my podcast and on here last season. I think one of the big reasons why he's doing so well, Graham, is because of the success that he's built around him with the coaching staff he's brought in. He's brought in Steve Agnew, who's got big experience with Middlesbrough, Sunderland, and Newcastle with Steve Bruce. So Steve Agnew's got Premier League experience, and he can pass that on. I think that's one of the big things that's missing if you look around the leagues in terms of Fox when he went to Dundee United, and Steve McLean right now we need it. St Johnson, they need that experience in there that can help them through. And I think Steve Agnew's experience of the Premier League, also of recruiting players, that can only help Barry in his development. But I think he's done really well. Obviously, he's appeased the fans by doing well in Europe. Plus, they got a really good win against Rangers last season, and also it's probably the best time for Celtic to play Aberdeen 2 weeks ago because it's early on in the season. I still think Aberdeen would have probably got closer to Celtic if it were like say 10 weeks into the season. But the fact there was only 2, then that's probably the best time to play. I think Aberdeen are going to be in for a very good season.
Lonnie, same question to you. Are you surprised how well Barry Robson's done?
Well, I was surprised to begin with, yes. I mean, at first I thought when he was given it, and it seemed to be given it on a sort of longer term basis, at first I thought, is it the cheap option? Almost a bit like what Hearts did initially with Stephen Naismith. I kind of thought the same way at first, when he got appointed, but obviously one was before the other. But looking back at it now, that's kind of how I saw it. But Robson came in and done really well, and it just makes you think of could they not have appointed him a long time ago? Because Aberdeen, in relative terms, have struggled since Derek McInnes left, really, because they brought Stephen Glass in, who didn't pull off any trees. Then, well, Jim Goodwin came in and had a shocker, frankly. I mean, he may have brought in a couple of decent players at the start of his, second season, but something over the post-World Cup just went terribly wrong. I mean, you're never going to last too much longer after losing to Darvel, are you? But as for Robson, he's someone who worked his way up, managed Aberdeen's kind of development side, and has obviously gained respect from within the club. But no, I certainly did not expect him to be doing anywhere near as well as he's done, and I hope he keeps it going.
So we've got another few comments coming in here. Happily Stumble, the overconfidence of fans was driven by MSM, that sounds a completely different show, radio and TV presenters. Paul Donaldson says, not sure about the other clubs, but last time for Aberdeen was 2007-2008 under Jimmy Calderwood, and I think it was still called the UEFA Cup back then. And Paul, again, lots of players Aberdeen have brought in this season are fully signed. Last season we relied a lot on loan players, which is a fair point. Let's move on to the final game, and this is where I feel that I shouldn't be the host on this because I should go on asking questions, but here we go. Let's go to Tynecastle, where it was Hearts 1, PAOK 2. Hearts started off very well, got a penalty from Lawrence Shankland, who scores his 5th goal this season already, but it didn't last because Kai Rose gives away a daft penalty, Schwab scores at 12 minutes on the clock. 1-1. I'll get back to that in a minute. But then Zivkovic scores after 75 minutes to make it 2-1 to PAOK. I'm going to be honest, I'm disappointed because I thought they were there for the taking. I didn't think they were a great side. They weren't their Fiorentina Besiktas level. But it's disappointing, I think, for me, Reagan. I think we could have won that game last night.
You definitely could. And I was just saying, what is Kai Rose doing there? But it was virtually like 10 seconds after he scored the penalty. I was raging myself, and I do not support Hearts, but I was raging myself thinking, what is he doing? Like
he actually makes 2 mistakes. One with a header back who I don't know what he's doing, and then it's like he tries to make up for it and he dives in. But I've not played football at a great level, but I know that you don't dive in there. It's a daft challenge to make.
No, I think he was really daft, and I think as well, Stephen Naismith will be particularly annoyed in terms of they'll just put the deadlock. But they always say that saying in football is you're most vulnerable when you score a goal. So I think it's just disappointing for Hearts because I just feel that was a big missed opportunity for them. I don't know what you think, because I thought Pulp were not bad, but like you say, I didn't think they were that great at European opposition. And I think in terms of, I want to ask you this, well, Kim, do you think that Shankland goal to put them 2-1 up, I think that really knocked the stuffing out of the team? Because I felt like Shankland really suffered from that, and I think it really transmitted to the rest of the players.
I don't think it was that. I think it was the goal that then they scored. Listen, it's a great finish by Shankland, who has been phenomenal again this season. His numbers are incredible. I still think a lot of Hearts fans are worried he's going to leave in this window. I don't. I know they said the window's still open for another 2 weeks, but I still think he'll be here. It's a great finish, but I think it's the goal that they score that kind of knocks the stuffing out of us. But Laurie, I mean, I love European nights at Tynecastle. They're special. We got off to a great start. I thought Kenneth Vargas was fantastic all night. I thought he was really good, gets the penalty. But as Reagan just mentioned there, when you're 1-0 up early on, you've got something to then build on, or even like keep a few passes going, get yourself real into the game and get fired up. What Kyle Rose was doing for that penalty, I do not know. You've just got to clear your lines. It's ridiculous defending. And again, when you've just taken the lead a few minutes earlier, it is so disappointing to lose such a daft goal straight away.
Yeah, just daft, petulant. I don't know. I'm kind of struggling for adjectives for it, really, but just, it's just really poor slack defending. I mean, I was asked you, Graham, and Reagan as well. Feel free to come in on this. Is that normally like Kai Rolls? I don't really think it is. He seems reasonable enough.
To be honest, he has, when he first came in, he was excellent. He was really good. Then he signed his 5-year contract and he got a bit too comfortable and he's made a lot of mistakes. Now I know it's only a friendly, but we played Leeds in a friendly a few weeks ago at Tynecastle and he was very poor. Balls over the top, he was getting caught. He was making far too many mistakes, but he started to get better. Frankie Kent has been a great signing for me and I thought he'd improved. And to be fair to him, he makes that poor mistake, but then he kind of settles into the game and he got better. But he's not been quite as good as he was when he first came. And I think when you're giving somebody a new 5-year contract, you're hoping they're going to settle down. But he's not been the same player as he was before he signed that new deal.
No, not at all. It's not great to hear if you're a Hearts fan. But yeah, I mean, it is just, as you say, it's about keeping it simple once you've scored. Just don't do it. We'll say don't do anything stupid. Don't give it away, and that's precisely what you just go and do. I mean, and there's no argument over it. And I'm sure if for anyone who was at Tynecastle last night, and I don't know if you were, Graham, but I'm sure as soon as you did that, your heart probably just sank. And
it did. I mean, Hashbury Stumble says, "Got to go, folks. I got an appointment to listen to a string cheese incident show." Well, Hashbury, that's damn shame. Boom, boom, here all week. Paul Donaldson said, "Hearts still in it. If they manage to get a goal over in Greece, it becomes completely open, especially now the away goal rule has been scrapped. But lose a goal and it becomes an uphill struggle." And I think McAvoy and Naismith recently have done well with the substitutions. I think I've praised them quite a lot. For me, yesterday, they got it wrong in the second half because when Barry Mackay goes off, Alex Lowry was the wrong change. He should have brought Oda on. Alex Lowry has been okay, but he's not a winger. He's a number 10. He's got no pace. And he gave the ball away numerous times yesterday. It was the wrong change for me. And then again, when we go 2-1 down, he makes the changes too late. He brings Civic on too late. He brings Oda on too late. I think they got that wrong. But for me, the second goal was disappointing because, Laurie, I was watching it last night and I saw Zivkovic, when he got the corner, telling his mate, edge of the box, that's where I'm going to be standing. I saw it. So how no Hearts players saw that, I don't know. They got it from far too quick. It was a great finish. And after that, you could see that the energy from Tynecastle just completely drained out the stadium. And it drained out the players as well because they put so much into the game. They were well in the game. And I would say probably the two biggest things in that game for me were at 1-1 in the first half. I'm going to be harsh here, because I think Liam Boyce should score the chance that he gets. I think it's a decent chance. And then the offside goal from Shankland, I do think changes the game. Because if that goes in, it's a different atmosphere.
Yeah, I think you're right there. I mean, like what you say about Liam Boyce, I thought he'd have scored as well. And just for the record, that you were saying about the subs, I mean, Alex Lowry coming on baffled me, to be honest. Well, from what I saw, but you may have a more informed perspective than me, Graham. I kind of saw it as Alex Lowry was coming on for somebody anyway. So he just when Mackay pulled up, but I don't know if that's actually what the case was. But why bring a centre middle and when your wingers on the bench like Oda, as you say, and Mackay's hurt, it still just made no sense.
Reagan, I think, Hashbury Thunder says he's got to go. Reagan, I think for me, and I said it before the game started last night, I looked at the team sheet, and I said when I saw the team lineup that playing Alex Cochrane, a left back in midfield, was a massive gamble, and I don't think it paid off.
No, I sort of agree with you because I think in terms of doing it in European, I think it's probably different if you're playing, say, a St Johnstone at home, where you're probably going to have the majority of the ball. But in European football, it's totally different. Yeah, I was a little bit worried when that happened myself, Graham, and I think it definitely didn't pay off either. No.
I mean, Laurie, I'm assuming you watched the game last night. I mean, you obviously don't watch Hearts regularly like I do, but when you saw that Alex Cochrane, as I mentioned, as a left back playing in midfield, you've got now. I'm not a massive fan of Andy Halliday, but you've got Andy Halliday on the bench. You've got, for me, I would have started Aidan Denham, who was excellent last week. What did you think when you saw that we were starting a left back in midfield?
Yeah, I thought it was very strange, to be honest. I did see that as they were going through the lineups on the TV, and at first I thought, is that a mistake? And it turns out no, it wasn't. But my first reaction to it was really, as you say, I don't watch Hearts all the time, so I thought, is this just something Naismith and McAvoy do, or is this something that normally happens? But no, it was a strange one, and as you say, Andy Hardy's maybe not great. But as you say, he's a bit of experience in there, and actually by trade a midfielder. So would have made a bit more sense. Or a young Denham, as you say, who was, pretty good against Hendon Rosenberg. And I thought yeah, it looked decent when he came on that little bit against Kilmarnock because I was at time castle that week. I thought Denham looked pretty decent. So yeah, it was fair to start.
So I'm going to say second leg going to be difficult. I think we've got a chance. It's going to be difficult, but I'm going to be honest. I think it might be a step too far. So I'm going to say that I think we'll go out, but I think it'll be tight. I think we can create chances over there, but I think we'll probably just go out. Reagan, what's your thoughts on the second leg next week?
I think it's a massive game, and like you say, I think it probably the ideal for Hearts would have been to get the second leg at home again like last week because you know what you've got to do. I'd probably go for a 2-2.
Laurie, what's your thoughts on the second leg?
My thoughts are quite similar to yours, Graham. Actually, I mean, I just think Hearts will definitely give it a go, but I just think that it might just not happen. And PAOK or Pout will go on and will go on into the group stage. But it's a real shame for Hearts because you seem to have actually built what appears to me is a relatively decent side, and people seem to have calmed down just now over the whole Naismith and McAvoy management scenario. Whereas before the season, all the talk about Hearts being a bit of a mess or a bit of organised chaos, but it seems to actually be a bit better than that. So yeah, I would feel a little bit bad for Hearts if they were to go out, but it may well be a bridge too far, but certainly not a Greek tragedy. I'm sure you'll
I
do as
certainly
well.
hope it's not a Greek tragedy. Well, we're into the second hour of the show. It's been another busy show and a very quick show. I'm enjoying this tonight with my good friends Laurie and Reagan. Let's now move on to the games at the weekend. And it starts off in Dingwall as Ross County, who have done very well so far, take on Rangers in the half-12 kickoff. Laurie, I'm going to come to yourself first. Ross County so far, sitting seventh after 2 games, beaten 4-2 by Celtic in the first game, but played very well. They then beat St Johnstone, had a decent League Cup run so far. What's your take on Ross County so far going into this game against Rangers tomorrow?
I think they've they've started pretty well, and if you're Ross County, you've got to try and go into the Rangers game, as difficult as may be, with a little bit of cautious optimism. I mean, they gave Celtic a bit of a scare at Celtic Park from the day. Rangers, we've seen, are beatable, and as you say, Ross County have started, pretty well. A win, albeit against a pretty poor St Johnstone side, and obviously losing 4-2 to Celtic, so they're not in a bad place. Plus they're at home. They're in Dingwall, so who knows? They could be given a chance. Rangers are, of course, still overwhelming favourites. But if you're Ross County, you've got to just be up for it and see what happens, because it can be done.
Reagan, have been impressed with Ross County so far. They look decent going forward. I think they've recruited well. Malcolm McCarthy's done very well. They're going to this game at home with confidence, and you've got a Rangers team coming off the back of a very difficult game on Tuesday. This is going to be a hard game for Rangers tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, I watched them at Celtic Park first day of the season when I was there. I thought Ross County could have scored 2 goals in the first 10 minutes. Played well, they've scored 2 goals overall in the game. And I think they looked decent. They beat St Johnstone the week before. And then we've got into the League Cup action. So I think, in terms of Malcolm Mackay, I think he'll be quietly confident that he can do something in this game.
Laurie, as Luna comes in here, I think the Old Firm look relatively weaker against the rest this season. Obviously, it's early days, but who wouldn't like to see a closer top flight? I think that's a fair point. I think if you look at the way Kilmarnock has started so far, Hearts have done okay, Miller have done okay, St Mirren have done very well so far. Could this, do you think, be a tighter league this season, or do you still think the Old Firm will run away with it by 20, 30 points?
Well, I think come the end of the season, the Old Firm will end up running away with it, but a tighter league would be fantastic. Even Old Firm fans, I'm sure, we want it to at least be somewhat more kind of competitive, really. But as you say, Kilmarnock, as much as they're a side close to my heart, of course, have kind of just shown that, again, Celtic can be beatable at times, last season, albeit never forced and forced goals to his Spurs and what have you. Celtic at times did look invincible last season. I thought for the majority of the season did, and the fact that Kelly managed to, dump them out of the League Cup at last 16. You've had conceding 2 goals to Ross County, labouring the victory over Aberdeen. So they've looked a little bit iffy by their standards, maybe just reacclimatising to Brendan Rodgers, who knows. And Rangers, again, kind of similar, of course, losing to Kelly on the opening day, and then, beating Livingston, but not really a huge, I wouldn't say it was a huge achievement, to be honest. And it's just, and then Europe has done well, but the Old Firm look a bit more vulnerable this year, yeah.
For anyone that's not watching, that's only listening to this, Reagan has left us. See you, bye, Reagan. I don't know where he's gone into a black hole somewhere, I think. But yeah, so it's just me and my good pal Laurie left on the show now. As I say, it's been a really quick show at the moment. But I mean, going into this game, the thing is as well for Ross County, I know it's only 2 games in, but if Ross County win tomorrow, they go above Rangers, which is a massive incentive. But I've been impressed with what Ross County have done so far. Against Celtic, I thought they were very good. Lost 4 goals, I know, but they were very good. They had a go at them. Against St Johnstone, could have won the game by 4 or 5. They were so comfortable. I think Ross County after last season, when they were so poor and they were so close to getting relegated, it seems like they've had a bit of a kick up the backside, Lauren. It's almost like we can't be in that position again because they have improved.
Yeah, they absolutely have, and I'm sure Malcolm Mackay has actually spoken about, you kind of using the kind of feel good factor that Ross County got from, staying up in the manner which they did, but also kind of using it as a warning, as a kick up the backside, as you say, and they do seem to have started very well, and of course, as well as their league campaign, of course, they had the kind of crazy game against Airdrie where they won, they won 4-3,
They did
in
indeed.
extra time. So again, defensive frailties are maybe still there, but then again, Airdrie have, at least in the Cup anyway, seem to have came across pretty decent because up until playing Ross County, I'm sure they were the only team with a 100% record, so they'll have fancy their chances that day as well. But Ross County seem to have kicked on, although it's early days. They're like every team, I suppose, though, they're not wanting to be in that relegation battle coming into the season, and they definitely don't want to finish in the playoff spot again. Yeah, they're probably just hoping
Looking at looking at Rangers going at this game, do you think they'll make many changes from that game on Tuesday? Obviously, with a lot of tired legs there. Might be a chance of Uruguay likes the starts to Matondo. Possibly, I don't know if Hadji's fit yet. What do you think Rangers will be looking for this game?
I think Rangers will just be, of course, just wanting to, of course, win, but they'll just want to get this game out of the way because they'll have one eye on Europe. They may even rotate a little bit, as you say. Maybe the likes of Matondo might start or whatever. But Rangers, to them, this game is just a bit of a chore, and to be fair, it probably is. I mean, you're going from Glasgow to Dingwall, which is a bit of a chore of an away day in itself. But they just want this out of the way and try and get their European job done. But then that can also have its own problems of them trying to maybe or giving playing into Ross hand a bit and giving them a chance to go and cause an upset, and that's roughly what I think happened with Rangers on the opening day when they came to Rugby Park and lost. I mean, they just looked very flat and disjointed, and but that's maybe an incentive there for Rangers. What they did at Rugby Park is precisely what they want to avoid tomorrow lunchtime.
Do you think, and I think I might have said this last week, do you think away from home now, the likes of Kilmarnock, Hearts, Hibs, Ross County, do you think, like at home grounds now, these teams might have more of a chance against Celtic Rangers this season? Because as I said, I don't think either of them have started very well. Obviously, Kilmarnock have already beaten Celtic and Rangers this season at Rugby Park. So do you think these teams have got more of a chance now at home?
Yeah, I think they do. I mean, like it's difficult because when, as a fan of one of club, of course, as a Kilmarnock fan, you've got to think that when you play, Celtic at Parkhead or Rangers at Ibrox, the kind of defeatist part in you just go, oh, they're going to win because Ibrox or because it's Celtic Park. But when you're playing them at your own ground, you've got to have confidence that, of course, every team has their advantages over those time at their home ground. Every other team. I mean, of course, if you think of Kelly or Livingston, you've got the ill-fated plastic pitches. At Ross County, I would say, you're quite a narrow, narrow pitch, quite close to the fans, which might not be the Old Firm's cup of tea. So you probably do have more of a chance at your home stadium and probably a few more kind of levelers in your favour.
What's your prediction for tomorrow, Laurie? Ross County against Rangers?
I mean, I kind of dug myself a little bit of a hole here and talking up Ross County for the last 5 minutes. But I'll just say what will happen. I reckon Rangers will win, but I think Ross County will run them close. I'll say 2-1 Rangers.
I'm going to go for a draw. I'm going to go 1-1. I think County will fancy this tomorrow against the Rangers side that are not looking overly impressive so far. I think County can sneak a draw here.
Time will tell. I think it's an interesting match.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's move on now to Celtic back, and Celtic take on St Johnstone. Celtic so far sitting top. They've not been overly impressive though. They've beaten Ross County by 4-2. They beat Aberdeen by 4-1. They're playing against our St Johnstone side who I mentioned before him on the show look in real crisis just now. Laurie, I think if you were going to place a bet on this game, your money would be quite safe with Celtic.
Yes, I would think so. Even with Celtic, losing in the League Cup last week, I think your money would be very safe with Celtic. I mean, I'm not a betting man. However, if I was, I would definitely not bet against Celtic getting a result tomorrow, and I think they will. There's sadly nothing to really suggest that St Johnstone will go to Celtic Park and get something, because I mean Celtic haven't been anywhere near their best, but St Johnstone, League Cup included as well, have been nothing short of woeful, to be honest.
Well, let's hear from the Celtic manager, Brendan Rodgers, who had his press conference earlier on.
Disappointing for us in terms of Cameron Carter-Vickers, Mike Narocki and Stephen Welsh probably about 8 weeks. So Stephen Welsh obviously had an operation just the other day, so he's come through that well. The other two, we were hopeful that they would be back sooner, but with sort of further scans on them, puts them at probably about 8 weeks from now. So Rio Atati will be back international break during that. We got Mikey Johnson will be next week. We've got Kobayashi will be in the international break, and we'll return next week to training. Alistair Johnson's back, which is great news for us. He's trained well, and will be available for the weekend. We have to impose our intensity in the game and our work. Every game will be a challenge, and we know that. But I'm really looking forward to playing at home. At the first game, which was a great atmosphere. We've been away for a couple of games. Feels like longer, but the chance to come back home and play and get back on track again feels really good. So I'm looking forward to be a full house, and we'll be ready for it.
Laurie, it's a massive blow for Celtic not having Carter Vickers fit. We obviously know Hatati's a fantastic player. How big a blow, though, is it not having Carter Vickers? I know they've got Narofsky there, but Carter Vickers has been fantastic for Celtic.
Carter Vickers really has been a rock at the Celtic defence. He was first brought in a few years ago, and you were saying about Narofsky, he has been added to Celtic's injury list as well. So I mean, Celtic, as Brendan Rodgers kind of alluded to, are really struggling in the centre back department with Carter Vickers and then Narocki both being out for, I think it was 8 weeks. Brendan just said, so 2 months plus. Stephen Welsh he's out injured as well. So they've probably got Liam Scales in at centre back this weekend. I'm not giving anyone any fantasy football advice there, but yeah, Celtic are going to really struggle without Carter Vickers, who's arguably one of the best centre backs in the division, if not the best centre back. So that's going to be a struggle. And Hatate as well, excellent player. And as for Celtic, the quicker they can get him back, the better. Although of course, a week today, the transfer window slammed shut, but I would expect some business from Celtic in that time, especially with the injury news that we've had.
I was at Tynecastle last week for Hearts against Partick Thistle, so I never managed to see the Kilmarnock Celtic League Cup game. What was the difference last week between, did you see a massive difference between Celtic under Brendan so far and Celtic under Postecoglou?
I'd say the main difference, Graham, was just the manner in which Celtic did things, of course, and Postecoglou was all kind of fast pace, in your face, we never stop. Whereas Celtic seemed under Rodgers seemed to be a lot more pedestrian, calm, patient about their work, which I think played in the Kilmarnock's hands, to be totally honest with you. I mean, I was actually surprised with how Celtic were. I mean, and they never really had too many chances either. They just, occasionally got the ball forward, and it was Will Dennis, Kilmarnock goalkeeper, was equal to anything. But Kelly, and maybe this is testament to our defence, we managed to keep, Maeda and Hyogo, etc., pretty quiet. I mean, and Lila Baza as well, he only lasted about an hour, and he didn't really do anything. But the biggest difference, as I said, is just how the build up is a lot less frantic, and I'm using the word frantic in the most positive sense. Celtic were just almost too considered about the work, if that makes sense.
I mean, in terms of, you just mentioned it there quite rightly so, by the time we do this show next Friday, the window will be closing. I think it's midnight in Scotland, 11 o'clock for anyone else in England, I think. I mean, Brendan Rodgers kind of mentioned the fact he's going to need to bring players in. How many players realistically do you think Celtic need before that window shuts next week?
Well, they probably need at least a couple of centre backs now. And one thing I would say they need, and it's been mentioned quite a few times, but I kind of seen it firsthand last weekend. I'm not saying they'll do it, but it feels like they need a new goalkeeper. I mean, Joe Hart, of course, really, experienced pro, got countless caps of England. But you can kind of see that maybe his time at number one is coming to an end. Celtic fans said it in pre-season. I mean, there's quite a few videos of the howlers that he did when they were in their pre-season tour. I think a goalkeeper might be what they need, but whether they do that, I don't know.
In terms of the opposition, Laurie, St Johnstone are sitting bottom. They've got no points. They've not scored. They've conceded 4 goals against Hearts and against Ross County. They had a dreadful Viaplay Cup run. They are a team in crisis. I would imagine the last thing Stephen McLean wants is to be going to Celtic Park.
Yeah, I think that was his worst nightmare, really. I mean, that, and we'll get into predictions in a minute, I'm sure, but that score could be anything, and I'm sorry to any St Johnstone fans listening. I mean, I really don't envy your situation. I mean, St Johnstone and the side of the club probably look at my club, probably look at Kilmarnock and think they'd be us kind of thing. And if you look at where Kelly went to where St Johnstone have went, you can see, well, we've kicked on with St Johnstone have went backwards. I mean, at the start of the summer, both Kelly and St Johnstone were quite comparable, because I think St Johnstone lost 17 players. We lost something similar, but the difference is we brought players in. St Johnstone have really struggled to do that, and they're paying the price for it now.
Well, let's hear from St Johnstone manager Stephen McLean as he looks ahead to this massive game at Celtic Park tomorrow.
Recently, Cameron McPherson started back training. Chris Kane started back training as well, so which is good. Nicky Clark's running again. Ali Crawford's running again. So it's starting to get a bit better. So there's light at the end of the tunnel there. It's going to be very difficult. I think they're coming off a bad result as well, albeit the AstroTurf's a different game, but they'll be wanting to put that right as well. So it'll be a very difficult game, but it's one that we're looking to go there and do well in. And listen, we won't be judged on what happens against Celtic, but we want to go and give a good account of ourselves and make it difficult for them and impose our style on them as well. And so I'm a lot happier with the squad going into this week than I was Ross County game. It's always difficult to go to Parkhead or Celtic Park and get a result, so we'll need to be at our best and hope they maybe have an off day. So fingers crossed that happens.
He is right, Laurie. He's not going to be judged on games against Celtic. But the last thing you want when you're not playing well and you're losing goals is to get hammered at Celtic Park.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as you say, spot on. St Johnstone are absolutely not getting judged on a game against the Old Firm, especially not away from home. But the way St Johnstone have started this season, I mean, it just looks as if they're going to get a scalping tomorrow. I mean, Stephen McLean, and this is, I kind of feel from here, this is almost to his credit. He's having to kind of mold the team together kind of very last minute and rely on all the young kids and whatever. But it's putting a lot of pressure on quite a young and quite a thin squad to go out and perform at Celtic Park. And I'm sorry, but I only see it going one way.
I mean, he said there that he's happier with the squad than he was last week. I guess he's not going to say he's gutted about the squad he's got, but I still don't think St Johnstone have got enough quality in that squad.
No, I don't either, and no disrespect to any of the players who Stephen McLean has signed, but I mean they signed a couple of guys this week, and they may well be good players, and please may they be good players. It's just, you know, they're not guys that you've really heard of, or guys that jump off the page and you go to yourself, they're a good signing, or they've done really well at this level, that level. It's players who we've never really heard of, which can go both ways. They may well be hidden gems, but it could also just not work out for them. I don't know what you thought of any of the players that Stephen McLean's brought in, Graham.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't think they're a lot of quality. I mean, you've got the guy Luke Jeffcott in, who he's not really done a lot. He looks a decent enough player, but whether he's going to get the goals to keep St Johnstone safe, I don't think so. I do like the goalkeeper they've got. I think he looks very good, and he's going to be needed because he's going to be very busy in every game. More so tomorrow, because I think it's going to be hammering. But they just trying to attract players to St Johnstone is not easy, and it's like trying to attract players to Livingston, for example. It's not going to be easy. How to sell the club to them, it's going to be hard, but they need, for me, still 4 or 5 more players in this window, and they've got a week to do it. I just think it's going to be very difficult, and we spoke about it before we came on air as well. I said I don't think McLean will last till October. Now, like I said, he's not going to be judging games like tomorrow against Celtic Park, but they just look a club that is rudderless. They look in crisis. They are a club with very low confidence. And the thing they can't have tomorrow, if they lose an early goal, which, let's be honest, they could, if they lose an early goal, that could be painful. And then at what point, now again, it's difficult to ask. I know this, Laurie, it's difficult to ask. But at what point do the St Johnstone board start to think, we've got this appointment wrong, we have to act, and we have to act now, or we're going one way, and that's down.
Yeah, I think they've got to, if it keeps going the way it's going, take action pretty quickly. Of course, as you say, tomorrow for St Johnstone isn't the be all and end all, but I mean, they really have to be careful. St Johnstone, don't wait until it's too late. We've seen plenty of clubs wait till it's too late, and especially it gets difficult, especially if you're in a scenario like Steve McLean where you are well liked at a club, and I imagine he might be able to buy himself a little bit more time because of his kind of success previously. But if you look at St Johnstone's upcoming fixtures, I mean, after they play Celtic, they've actually got Dundee at home. I mean, and after Dundee it is Rangers, but the thing is, if you're losing to kind of, I mean, local rival in Dundee, I mean, that won't inspire confidence in the fans. I'm not saying if he loses that he should go, but games like that, St Johnstone should be targeting. Put a marker down, because when you think, I mean, Dundee won the championship last year, and the way things are going, that's the way St Johnstone are heading.
I think we're probably both going to say a Celtic win tomorrow, but what's your prediction for tomorrow?
Okay, so I'll try and be somewhat generous to Jones. I'm going to say 4-0 Celtic. I was thinking higher, but I'll say 4.
I'm going to go one more. I think it'll be 5. I'm sorry, St Johnstone fans, but I just think you're going to be in for a real painful thing tomorrow. But listen, you ain't going to be judged on that. I know that, but it's going to be hard. Let's go. We've got 4 games left. We've got half an hour to go. We've got 4 games left. Let's go to Easter Road. Hibs against Livingston. This is a tough one to call, Laurie, because Hibs have not started the league season well. They've lost both the games so far. Livingston have drawn one and lost one against Rangers. This is a tough one. because Hibs are off the back of a hammering by Villa, but we knew that was going to happen. What's your thoughts on this one tomorrow? Because this is interesting.
Yeah, I mean, that's, as you say, really tough to call. Could go either way. I mean, neither team has, pulled up any trees, at the start of the season. Of course, if you were to take the European, Hibs European game out of it, you would probably have said that the Hibs would be favourites on paper, but then again, psychologically, what does losing 5-0 like 3 or 4 days prior do to you? I mean, probably helps Livy if anything. But it's gonna be a tough one to call, and again, I know as we said earlier in the show, a tough one, particularly for Lee Johnson to manage. Like, because you feel like you've got to prioritise this game over the second leg at Villa Park. So Hibs rather will probably feel pressure to put a statement out, and obviously Livy will be wanting to get that first league win as well.
100%. I mean, it's very early in the season. Do you see any positive signs from Hibs so far this season?
I mean, whenever I watched them, maybe Wednesday aside, they haven't looked, and I didn't watch the game in Andorra, they haven't looked terrible, but this seems to lack something, but it's always been the same with Lee Johnson. You kind of, they go through like fits and starts where they look all right, and then they just seem to self-destruct almost. So you just never know what to expect from Hibs. I mean, they're always entertaining. I mean, Lee Johnson is the most entertaining manager in the league, I think. You never know what you're
He's
getting
come out
from
with
him.
he's come out with some cracking statements the last few weeks. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, some of them are unbelievable. I mean, just anyone, if you've got a bit of spare time or you just want to laugh, just look up Lee Johnson quotes and you'll be able to find them, I'm sure.
They're getting funnier. You had another one earlier on. They're getting funnier. Seriously. But I mean, in terms of obviously Hibs tomorrow, they are at home. Disappointment on Wednesday, but they do have somebody that could be a match winner tomorrow. You spoke about right along with the preview in Europe. Martin Boyle. How important could he be to Hibs tomorrow?
Yeah, he could be massive for Hibs. I mean, I think everyone's forgetting with Boyle that obviously he just spent the last 6-7 months out with injury before the start of this season. So obviously, this is probably a Martin Boyle who's not 100% up to speed, and he still looks to be, or looks if he's trying to be Hibs' driving force. So he could be huge. He's one of these players that if Hibs start doing well, once they put Europe behind them, if they can get him fully fit, he's scary for Premiership defences. It doesn't matter who you are. You've always got to keep an eye out for Boyle.
In terms of Livingston, 0-0 Aberdeen first game of the season, a loss 4-0 to Rangers. We know that David Martindale has spoken a lot about the financial restrictions. We know he's spoken about the fact that a cheeky bid was put in by a Scottish Premiership club, we don't know who that is, for Joel Newbley. How do Liverpool approach this game tomorrow? Because, again, they're a club that I think they're under a bit of pressure. And David Martindale, for me, seems to be not quite as upbeat as normal.
Yeah, he's definitely this summer or the last few weeks. He certainly hasn't been quite himself. I think sometimes that's almost an effect of effectively being Mr. Livingston. I mean, he doesn't necessarily run it up from top to bottom, but he's the buck always stopping Martindale. Whereas at the better clubs, there may be more people in charge of certain things, but that probably doesn't help Martindale at times. But he doesn't seem himself. He seems a bit resigned to the fact that Livy are going to have a bad season. Whether they are or not, he seems pretty much resigned to that fact. And I've definitely listened to him multiple times already this season saying that Livy are a championship club and playing in the Premiership. And I'm not saying he's wrong. He probably isn't when we're talking financially or whatever. But the fact a manager comes out and says that, it doesn't inspire confidence, does it?
No, it doesn't. I mean, in terms of Livingston, what can they do tomorrow to cause his problems? Is it going to be about getting Joe Noodle into the game?
Yeah, I think Joe Newbley could be key for them. I mean, he's a player who, when he's on song, when he's focused, it's hard to stop. Just the sheer physicality of him. And we kind of seen, albeit against Aston Villa on Wednesday, we kind of did see Hibs' kind of softer side, and then the two were picking up people, even like Ollie Watkins during the week. So if Hibs still have a hangover from that, which they could do, I mean, Joe Nobley could be in for some joy. Time will tell.
What's your prediction for this game? Because I genuinely think this is a tough one to call.
Yeah, I think that's a tough one to call. So I'm going to somewhat sit in the fence and say 1-0, Livy 1, or Hibs 1, Livy 1.
Yeah, I'm gonna get splinters with you. I'm gonna go 1-1 as well. I think it's too tough to call. Two teams that are not great in form in the league, so it's going to be tough to call. So I think going 1-1 was very well. But let's move on to Motherwell against Kilmarnock, two teams who are in form. Motherwell sitting fourth, Kelly sitting fifth. This is a very, very interesting game. I think this could be a very, very good game of football. Two teams who want to try and play the game the right way. Motherwell started really well so far. They got a 1-1 draw against Dundee, then beat Hibs 2-1. Kelly, as you will well know, won against Rangers by 1-0, drew against Hearts 0-0, have already knocked Celtic at the League Cup. Laurie, thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I think what you said is spot on. It has the potential to be the game of the weekend, really, because you say two evenly matched form teams. I mean, I, in my heart of hearts, of course, hope that Kelly can get away with a win, but you can't deny that, at least last season anyway, Kelly had a dreadful away record, whilst Motherwell remain very strong at home. So it is going to be a great game. I, of course, hope that Motherwell don't get the result in it. And what may help Kelly is that Motherwell are going to be without Mika Beres, the young Arsenal striker, who Stuart Kettlewell spoke very highly of, and he unfortunately picked up an injury after a pretty poor tackle when the cup game against Middlesbrough was done. So, I mean, Motherwell maybe going to be a little bit toothless up front. Obviously, still trying to replace Kevin Van Veen, which is pretty difficult.
Well, let's hear from Stuart Kettlewell, the Motherwell manager, ahead of tomorrow's match.
Comes back onto the league. We knew that the cup game would be slightly different and that it's a one-off game. We come up short on the day, stick our hands up to it, we acknowledge it. But I do believe that we have a group that will come back with a good reaction on Saturday. They've done excellent, haven't they? I think they've invested really well. They've freshened up their squad. I spoke to Derek in the summer, and I know there was a lot of changes there in terms of players going out and obviously looking to have a pretty big overhaul of the squad. And it looks as if in the early parts of it they've got it right. You know, it looks as if they've brought in some real good quality, some good energy in their team. I was at the game on Sunday. Thought they were excellent. Thought they were worth their win. And when you put in the factor that they've played against arguably the three biggest clubs in the country, and they're undefeated, then I think that they've started really well, which again signifies how difficult the game's going to be for us on Saturday. But you know, I'm fairly certain again that Derek will acknowledge that we're in a pretty rich vein of form, albeit with a poor week last week and we lost a game of football. I think he'll acknowledge that we've been in a decent place as well. So I think it's two teams that again sit with a pretty positive mindset and that are in a relatively good place. So I would hope that everyone will see a decent contest and two clubs that are trying to ideally take themselves out of the position that they found themselves in last season, trying to pitch beyond that sort of languishing bottom end of the table and trying to see if we can sort of progress a few places from maybe where we found ourselves last season. I know it ended up pretty good for us in the end, finishing 7th, but I'm sure Derek's mindset will be that he wants a little bit more than being involved in that relegation battle, if you like, and I'm fairly certain on Saturday you'll see that from both sides.
Laurie, I like Kettlewell. He comes across really well, speaks really well. He's obviously talked about how well Kilmarnock have done so far. He just comes across a very likeable guy.
Yeah, absolutely. He does come across pretty well. We're using well quite a lot, aren't we? But he is he's actually impressed me, Stuart Kettlewell, because when Motherwell gave him a bit like Barry Robson at Aberdeen, I suppose, when Motherwell gave him the job again, you automatically think, is this just a cheap option, promote him from within? Albeit he didn't do a bad job at times, at Ross County a few years back, but he surprised me, Kettlewell, just the kind of run that Motherwell went on when he took over in the second half of last season. But I thought, is that going to carry on, into this season, especially after the loss of Kevin Van Veen? But to Stuart Kettlewell and to Motherwell's credit, they appear to have just kept going, picked up where they left off.
Do you? You're right about Beereth as well. I heard Kettlewell's comments. He was not happy with the challenge by Charles Dunn. Did you agree with the comments that Kettlewell said about that challenge? That it was very, very, very poor.
I think he's right to say that it was very poor, but there's probably a little bit of sour grapes in there because I think Beereth wasn't fully fit anyway, and I don't know whether maybe it's not helping he came in kind of partially unfit. However, Charles Dunn, in fairness to him, has, albeit after the event and after all the controls around it, reached out and apologised and whatever. But
Yeah, I've seen that.
But then always said and done, I suppose it's not a good one for Motherwell because from what you saw of Michael Beereth on his debut that week, he looked really good for Motherwell, so they'll be gutted and a lot of pressure on the shoulders of Connor Wilkinson, one of their new strikers, as John Obika, I think, is injured as well.
Yeah. Well, let's hear from the man in the opposite dugout, Mr. Derek McGuinness.
A cup tie, we get through, we have to go back to try to win 3 points now in terms of league business, but I think any time you beat a team of Celtic's abilities, you've got to take the good with that. We said at the time we just need to try and part that now, look forward to the cup tie with Hearts and concentrate on my league form especially for these next 2 games before the international break. But I think the players should take a lot of confidence for how they've started. But Saturday presents a different challenge entirely, and we've got to make sure we're ready for that again. I think regardless of when you play your Rangers and your Celtics, these teams, if you come off the back of a bad result, it's important you get focused on the next one as quickly as possible. And now that we've obviously managed to beat Celtic in the cup, I think it's equally as important we just focus on Motherwell, and that message has been sent loud and clear to the players. The training's been good. Managed to get Innes Cameron back training this week, which was good. He missed last weekend's game with an ankle, he rolled his ankle. And we've got Liam Donnelly, who took a wee bit of a knock in the game, back training with us today as well. So clean bill of health. Hopefully we can take the good from the performances we've had, but ready for another challenge. In the short term, we just want to try and keep this type of run going. Really pleased the fact that we've had the 3 clean sheets against good opponent. So naturally, short term, let's do it again. Can we keep another clean sheet? Can we make sure we're as organised as we were? I think what we have seen is bags of energy, bags of spirit for the team. No shortage of good play at the right times, and good concentration in the games. Obviously we're playing a level opponent in the last 3 games. That has to be the case, and we're looking for that again. We're looking for that same demand against Motherwell, another formed team. I watched them last week lose the cup tie at St Mirren, but the run they've been on has been fantastic. So we're well aware they'll be looking to bounce back. They're at home. They've been strong at home, and it's important for us to go and treat the game with the same importance we've treated the previous games, and have the same demand on the concentration and try to get to our levels again. If we can get the same level of performance, then we certainly have a chance of getting the desired result.
Thank you to a wonderful producer, Nigel, in the background, who's putting all these on. It's fantastic to see we've got a better producer than me, but that would be hard. Laurie, McInnes sounded quite confident. You must be quite confident going at this game.
Yeah, I mean, and he and indeed I have every right to be feeling confident with the start that we've had. I mean, it's just I mean, I'm still, in all honesty, I'm still kind of on cloud nine from how we've started the season. Beating both sides of the old firm. Even the draw at Tynecastle. I mean, as I think it was Stuart Kettlewell pointed out. We've arguably played the three best team in the country, and we've not conceded the goal. Like, of course, at the top end of the pitch, we still have our issues. I mean, Derek McInnes has also been on record speaking about his kind of desperation at getting another striker in by the time the window shuts. But from what we've seen so far, I have every right to be confident, and defensively, we look fantastic at the moment. Don't want to speak too soon, but I can't complain at all.
I always think a good side starts from the back. And I think, to be fair, Robbie D, Stuart Finlay have been fantastic. As Lena says, McInnes used to live quite near me, always with a heavy suntan. But I genuinely think that defensively, you guys look very solid. Obviously, I watched you against Hearts at Tynecastle, and I was really impressed with the defence you've got. And I think Marley Watkins will score goals. I think Daniel Armstrong's a really good player. Matty Kennedy I like as well. And I like Vassell as well, but maybe won't score enough goals. So I think if you can bring in a real top-class striker into that park, I think you could have a very, very good season.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you hit the nail on the head there. I mean, Dees and Finlay have been superb together. I mean, it was a real coup for Kelly to manage to get Stuart Finlay to come back. I think a lot of that is probably down to McInnes and pulling power that he'll have. I'm surprised that Oxford were willing to loan him to us. I mean, it's only on a loan, but at this point we're not complaining. And Robbie Dees, you've got to remember, this is his first attempt at the Premiership. He's only played in the Championship and in the lower leagues, came through at Celtic, but never got a chance. But he looks to have taken the Premiership like a duck to water, and as if nothing new to him. So I mean, he keeps that up, he's in a great place. And as you say about the striker situation, Vassell, really like him, holds the ball up really well, and is a really good character as well. And he's Kelly's captain now. But the issue with Vassell for me isn't so much over the lack of goals. It's the fitness issue. You might have noticed it at Tynecastle, Graham. He's actually playing through an injury which he picked up towards the end of last season, which is why Vassell's not actually starting games and why Watkins has been in his place. So the thing is, striker-wise, we've got Marley Watkins, who's arguably more a wide player, but he's playing up for this now. Ennis Cameron, who's kind of target man. Bobby Wales, good young striker, but a bit raw and kind of half injured. Kyle Vassell. So we do lack, options up there. So hopefully we can get a striker. And you say if we do, I mean, we look to have the makings of a very good squad, which again is credit to Derek and to Ross Richardson, our head of recruitment, because we had a lot of work to do in the summer, and if it went wrong, we could have ended up in a similar situation to Johnson. I said earlier, we will lose all these players and don't manage to bring any in, but thankfully we've managed to bring a lot of players in, a lot of good players in by the looks of it.
I'll give you my thoughts first, Paul, before I ask Laurie. Paul Donaldson says, wondering what your thoughts are on Killie v Hearts being drawn in the League Cup. It's the tie that I didn't want. It's probably the hardest game we could have got out with Celtic and Rangers, but obviously Celtic are out. But yeah, it's a difficult game. Kilmarnock, listen, I'm not going to lie, Kilmarnock have been excellent so far. I can't lie about that. They've been fantastic. They were excellent at Tynecastle, restricted us to very few opportunities. But I'm kind of hoping that by the time that game comes around, it's like the end of September, we will have players more up to speed, like Kenny Vargas, like Tagawa, like Lowry. We might have players more up to speed. I'm hoping, fingers crossed, that Kilmarnock can't carry this form on, but I think they probably will. So it's a very, very difficult tie. I think if the game was at Tynecastle, It would be difficult, but I think we're going to have a chance. But Rugby Park, it's going to be very, very difficult. Laurie, your thoughts, mate?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a really, really good cup tie, and we're saying that we seemed very evenly matched at Tynecastle. I wouldn't say that Kelly maybe edged it, but I expect it to be another game similar to that, where it's just quite tense, and it might even be a single goal in it. Like, I mean, one of the is Kelly won't score a ton. Hearts, well, you probably could outscore Kelly, but will you out of defence? I don't know. So it's going to be a really interesting cup tie. I mean, I hope that of course we go through and we get another trip to Hampden. I mean, it's one of these ones, especially with Celtic already been knocked out. You kind of feel like if you get to that semi-final, I know it's talking ahead here. It could potentially go that one step further. I mean, that would be fantastic, and that applies to Hearts as well. It feels very achievable with Celtic being out.
Absolutely. Prediction, Motherwell Kelly?
Saying Motherwell Kelly, I'm going to say this is optimistic. I'm going to say 2-0 Kelly.
I'm going to go boring Arsenal. I'm going to say 1-0 Kelly. I just think Kelly look a very strong side, and I don't think they're going to concede, and especially with Beereth being out. We've got just under 10 minutes to go. We've got 2 games to go. Before I forget, I do also have to mention the US Tennis Open as well. Flushing Meadows starts on the 28th of August till the 10th of September. Novak Djokovic is a second seed. Carlos Alcaraz, the one Wimbledon's first seed. Andy Murray should be fit enough. Fingers crossed, hopefully a real good tournament. But yeah, that starts on the 28th, so that should be a decent kind of. I think it'll be a decent competition actually, but I think Alcaraz might just win that. But we've got 9 minutes left. We've got 2 games to go. Let's go to Dundee, Dens Park. Dundee against Hearts. Dundee have started okay. 1-1 against Motherwell, lost 2-1 to St Mirren. Hearts, as I well know, beat St Johnstone opening game, drew 0-0 with Kilmarnock. Off the back of a difficult European tie. Laurie, Dens Park on Sunday. What's your thoughts on this one?
Again, I think it's going to be an interesting game. I would definitely make Hearts favourites, but Dundee do appear to have started again relatively well in the Premiership, and of course it's difficult to call with Tony Docherty at the helm there. This is his first managerial job, so he's just settling into a new role. Dundee settling into a new league. I would say Hearts are favourites, having started not too bad considering how Europe's been and whatever. I'd say Hearts are favourites.
Yeah, I mean, Tony Docherty has done okay so far. I think he's got some decent players that I like. Lyle Cameron, really good young player as well. They've got a lot of young players in that team. But we can afford to rest a lot of players. I don't think we will. I think there'll probably be 4 or 5 changes, but I think we've got a good enough squad. I think I'd like to see Tagawa start. I think Lowry might start in midfield. He needs games because he's not had enough games. We've got a more than capable squad to win this game, and I do think it's a game we have to be winning because we've got the next few weeks we've got decent fixtures. We've got Motherwell at home next week. We have to have a decent run because in October we've got Hibs, Celtic and Rangers. We need to get a decent run of points up here, and this is a chance for us. We can't be dropping points in this game. It'll be a difficult game, but with the squad that we've got, I expect us to go to Dens, and it'll be difficult, but I'm expecting us to win this.
Yeah, so I think the point you make is very valid. When you get tough games coming up, this almost feels like a must win. I know we're only talking about match day 3 in the Premiership, but it does almost feel like a really important game for Hearts to win.
Do you think Dundee have got enough to stay up? Do you think they'll be fighting against relegation? I think we pretty much said St Johnstone are going to go down. But that kind of playoff place, that 11th place, do you think Dundee have got a good enough squad to stay out of there? Or do you think they still need to strengthen more?
I think they might need to strengthen more. I mean, a lot of the players that have signed are kind of unknown quantities to the Scottish games, so they might just struggle to settle whatever. They probably need a bit more Premiership experience in there, and they could keep themselves above water. Is
there a kind of chance that Dundee can look at this and think, well, yes, Hearts have got a good squad, but they're off the back of a energy-sapping game on Thursday, and this could be a game that Dundee might think, we can take points in this.
Yeah, and they've got to think like that, and you've got to feel like that when you're playing. You know, when you're at home, they've got to just go for it as best they can in the home games and see where it takes them. Dundee have got to come into this one with confidence, especially considering Hearts may well have that little European hangover.
Well, we've got 5 minutes left, as the producer has kindly reminded me. Predictions for this one, Laurie. Dundee against Hearts.
Okay, so I'll say 2-1 Hearts.
6-0 Hearts. No, I'm joking. I think it'll be... I'm going to go 2-0. 2-0 Hearts, I think. I'm not overly confident, but I think we should win this game. But the final game, it's like I'm saving the best till last, but I'm not really. It's just the way it came out. St Mirren against Aberdeen. St Mirren have been fantastic so far. One of the teams of the season so far. Aberdeen off the back of a really difficult game yesterday, but they'll fancy the chances of getting through. Another interesting game, Laurie, St Mirren against Aberdeen.
Yeah, it's a really interesting tie, especially a game with St Mirren kind of almost on from the season. Their first top six finished in the 80s, and of course Aberdeen doing really well to tip Hearts to the position that they thought they had last season. And yeah, so it's going to be a really, really good game in Paisley. I mean, St Mirren were going into them with confidence. Aberdeen, it's been a mixed bag, plus with Europe, so St Mirren probably slight favourites to pick a winner.
Yeah, I mean, as Alino says, I love that I can generally say St Mirren Park is something of a fortress. The only team to beat St Mirren there in the last over a season was Rangers on the final day, nothing game. And I think he's got a point there, because at home, St Mirren look a very good side, but away from home, they're picking up points as well. That opening game against Hibs, to be 2-0 up, to get dragged back to 2-2 and win the game. St Mirren have got something about them this season, and that's why I've already said I think St Mirren will finish top 6 again this season.
Yeah, I think they very well could. It might end up being for that 6th place. It could end up being between St Mirren, Kilmarnock, and Motherwell. Really, I reckon those 3 teams are really 3 teams to watch for breaking into that top 6.
In regards to Aberdeen, as I say, off the back of a game that they're going to the second leg in confidence. They started the league season okay. I mean, again, they drew with Livingston. They got beat by Celtic, but played well. What do you reckon Barry Robson's going to be looking for from this game?
I think he's just wanting to, get a tough away fixture, but obviously, again, he'll be doing it with Europe in mind. But I think he'll still go pretty strong, and he'll probably at least not lose. I reckon that game might be more protection. I think it's going to be quite tight.
Paul Donaldson, don't think we've beaten St Mirren away for a few years. Sunday will be a hard match for Aberdeen, but hopefully we can get our first 3 points of the season. It's a fair point. Again, St Mirren are a difficult team to play against, and Aberdeen will look at this and think we've got a strong squad. They've signed a lot of players this window. They signed another guy, I think it was Jensen, a couple of days ago, who was on the bench yesterday. I mean, just in terms of Aberdeen, we spoke about it earlier on. Do you think that Aberdeen can get third? Or I've said this already. One of the reasons that I think that Hearts will finish third is because Aberdeen are going to play group stage football, and that's difficult. Do you think that Aberdeen can finish third, or is that group stage football going to kind of hamper them a little bit?
I think they can get third, but I think you make a very valid point, Graham, that Hearts are at the advantage of potentially not having group stage football. So advantage Hearts for the race for third.
Yeah, hopefully. We're in the last minute. It's been another busy show. We've managed to get through 2 hours. It just remains for me to thank my good friend Laurie. I hope you enjoy the game against Motherwell. Should be a decent game. We are back on Sunday. I believe Michael is back for this. We are on from 3 till 5. Next week we are on. We've got a massive show next week because we will be looking back at the second legs of European football. We've got big games at the weekend, including the first Rangers-Celtic game. And as Laurie has already mentioned, next Friday it is the transfer window deadline day. So I'm assuming that a few signings will happen before when we're on air. We've got a massive show next week. Thank you to everyone for your comments. Thank you to everyone for watching. Thank you to our wonderful producer, Nigel. Sorry, mate, you're not getting paid for this, but I've got to say anyway. It's in the terms and conditions. But yeah, thank you to everyone for watching. We will be back next Friday at the usual time of 5 o'clock. But listen to us and watch us on Sunday from 3 till 5. Bye bye.
The Locker Room, with all the sports news you need. Live